A little steering linkage update. After fighting for a couple days, trying to get the steering linkage to find the steering column, and having this small gap right here that I could barely put my fingers through, trying to make it come right along this side. I was playing with a million different joints, trying to double joint and something joint and put little carrier bearing things in to make it work. I decided to take the manifold off that I decided I really wanted to keep, and I put the headers on that I actually had, and it gives me a ton more room with these headers, so I'll easily be able to make that work. I think they actually say that you can go straight in with it, but I honestly think even going straight, oops, they're not broke. I actually think going straight, you're still going to slightly hit that pipe there. So I'm just going to put another joint there with a little carrier piece coming off that. But then Mr. Starter is definitely hitting on the factory starter. But my previous 6.1 Hemi conversion that was in this car, I was using this starter, which is substantially smaller. So I'm going to swap out the starter and see if this starter actually works with this 6.4. And if that works here, then I can maybe actually use those headers. Right now, I mean, could you imagine trying to get to those bolts back there? And you definitely have to take the starter off, but I don't honestly think you couldn't get the starter off. Plus you would overheat that starter and bake it, and it would never run again. So take off the starter, see if that works. So I think I'm going to have to run these headers. And so now I'm going to need to remove this manifold, which also, I don't know if you can tell, if you look up inside the manifold, you can see they're individually tubed off of each hole. So it's not like a standard manifold and like old school cast iron manifolds. Yeah, see how there's actually tubes up in there, and each tube goes to each hole. So these factory manifolds, other than just their size, I mean, they flow absolutely fine. So performance-wise, anyone that would get rid of that 4 headers is an idiot for performance. Clearance, on the other hand, is the main reason I'm putting them in. So if I can make them work for clearance, that's what they're going to need. So after a few days of messing around trying to make steering work, that is going to be my only option. Let's get that starter to see if that starter is going to work. Well, the starter that I have must be for a different engine. Or the different bolt pattern. The bolts are slightly different. It is a substantially smaller starter. So basically I need this starter with the different bolts. So like everything, one more step for one more step. But I'm gonna still, I can move forward with to get the steering linkage in, and so it'll at least steer. Just need to get a different starter. So yay! I think I'm gonna close up for the night and see what I can get done later. Good looking rims though. God damn, that's good looking. Well, we're definitely going with the headers for the steering, so I got to take the headers off the other side. But typical headers, you have stuff like, see, I can't even hold the bolt and the camera at the same time. Trying to get that bolt in that space, and my fingers just barely get in there. Ow! But you know, while I'm here working by myself, and I do enjoy hearing Jamie is working on a swept line. I'm proud of you, boy.
There's one. There's one.
No, swept lines are different. That one's better.
Almost every type of power wagon that was
There you
ever
go.
made.
Those are awesome.
Except for the late 50s one and a modern.
Yes, right, girl. You're good too. Yes, you are. Don't be mad.
Jojo, you're a good girl. Cool truck. Good job, Jamie. All right, back to the car.
I'm pretty excited to get this thing.
Well, I just have one little tack right there holding on the joint. We have a focus. Small little angle going up to the steering gear. So I have lots of clearance. How about that? Lots of clearance going down that way. And the joint's not too tight. I can't see it that way. But, anywho, there's that. There we are. So, I've ran the steering both times. I can basically grab the wheel. Nothing's binding, nothing's hitting. So, it's a little bit of a wiggle because these are still loose. I need to tighten them up. I need to tighten the nuts up in here. Tighten those, tighten these. Weld this. I'm even going to need to tighten that so that that locks on. Kind of goes back to you can't really spin this off, so I'm just going to weld that nut to, I don't know. Now I'm trying to decide if I should take this apart, get another nut on here so I can double nut it to it and weld the nut to the, and actually I'm going to burn it on. It's going to be melted into it. I want it solid. I don't want it to come loose. I did all this undercoating, had to grind and clean up the undercoating on the frame, so I have something to weld to. But that'll be our steering. And lots of room for exhaust, lots of room for everything else, so let's get that burned in so we can see how it looks. She's tight and she steers, so everything's tight on it. Probably gonna take it apart, and I did decide I'm probably gonna put a double nut here so I can put more tension across that, but everything's super hard. I can't wiggle nothing. And so we are solid. That is, just cut my hand on a cut brake line. I gotta still put all new brakes and everything in. The whole front end is still loose. I've got all the bolts, the suspension's loose, the upper joints and everything are loose, so the A-arms. So I can put it on the ground, take the steering wheel, and at least kind of steer the tires to move it around. I'm gonna tighten up the front end a little bit more. I still have to put the header on this side, so I guess I will stick the header on it. Guess I'm kicking myself for not putting the headers on when the motor was outside. I thought about it very heavily and felt very strongly about not using the headers, but we are now using the headers, so it'd be kind of funny to run header on one side, not on the other. No, put them on both sides. But that was our basically, took us a little while to get the steering all the way. I'm going to got to take this idler pulley off and put power steering on this up there. These motors came with electric power steering racks, so I have to put a manual pump and a special pump to pull in for this pulley. And I also have the AC compressor and things I can put in here now so that I have room for that. And then back onto the Sweppy charger. I can throw the back tires on. I did get the new tires on my new rims where they were dented before, so I now have a factory spare, or I have a matching spare, so now I'll have a color match spare. And I have rims that are no longer dented, so I have brand new rims that are painted to match. I can get them put on. I did get the dash fully put in, so she looks beautiful. You turn on the lights and the headlights and everything work. I do still have some button up on some wiring to do. I have to make the cover for the steering wheel and get the steering wheel cover done. But that is very close to basically in the done position. Let's go around the other side. It did come out looking really nice. And I do have the new windshield. Just showed up, so we'll be putting in the windshield the next day or so. But that is the dash. Has the nice chrome mount piece over the top. Painted flat black. Buffed out the turned aluminum in there. And I wonder if I can get it to show me the headlights. Guess you got to turn the key on for the headlights. Hello. So there's that. And then there's the radio. So the radio's behind the ashtray. So you lift that up, that turns on. We have a little clock that lights up. It's got no miles on it. So very awesome to have it look as stock as possible. Heater controls. And got the stainless up on the top edge installed. So there's a lot to go. The new wheel is in, so we'll be putting in the new wheel. So that's where I'll get the wrap on that done. This guy is really close to driving. Let's get this down so we can work on it. I think that's about where I'll finish off this video. I do have to get a new starter. So the starter, you do have to have a special starter for this vehicle for the headers. That looks so much better with those wheels. But she turns. I know I said I'd ending video here or whatever, but I just would like to clarify how much of a jackass I am for not putting those on before I put this engine in the car. There's literally a bolt right there. There's a bolt right here that I just got out. I now have the easiest bolt left right here. And then I have to see how hard the header bolts are going to be. If I can't get these manifold, I thought these manifold bolts were going to be super easy. I thought the other side was painful. I thought this was going to be the easiest side, but whatever. It's what you learn when you're building stuff that isn't supposed to go in stuff that's supposed to be in other stuff to make something else work. Yay me. Alright, the header is in. I'm going to go inside, go to bed, take a shower. The funny part is how much more room there is between there with the header in, but still fighting the bolts around the tubes and typical header stuff of fighting bolts and fighting bolts. But they're in, they're tight, both sides are done. Now I'm going in. Kind of cool looking. Might have to make those into something. I still stand on my grounds. I don't like headers. I'm going to have to probably put more restrictive exhaust on it just so I don't get a groan or noise inside the cab. The old motor with those headers, I didn't like the groan. I got such a resignation in the cab that it sounded cool outside, but it was uncomfortable in the cab. So, well, we will see what we can do. I still want this thing to rip, so exhaust will be extremely important. Oh, those wheels look so good.